careful historians will recall that the Septuagint was a version of the Bible that was made available nearly 300 years before Jesus and the other Christians hit the scene in ancient Israel. 300 years. It's pretty old. So let's take a look at the Septuagint. Now, what I've got pulled up here is a website known as GreekDoc.com, and it contains a copy of the Greek of two versions of the Septuagint, two different manuscript families that the Septuagint can be obtained in, the Alexandrinus version and the Vaticanus version. But both of them are pretty old. And let's look at the Greek. Let's just highlight that part. Out of this first one on the left is the Alexandrinus translation or version. It is a translation. It's a translation from the Masoretic into Greek. It says, Kai eipen theos, poisomen anthropon kat ekana hemateron kai kath hamoiosin. All right. Reference-wise, over on the right side of the page, we have the Vaticanus version of the Septuagint, and it says Kai eipe. Notice there's a slight difference. It's missing one letter, but in the Greek, but not a serious change. Kai eipe ha theos poisomen anthropon kat ekana hemateron kai kath hamoiosin. All right, so there's not too much difference between the two different translations. Now, one of the English translations from the Alexandrinus text says, and God said, let us make man according to our image and according to likeness. Notice the Septuagint Greek drops the our in the word likeness that we had in the original English translation from, like, say, the KJV. Got the word our up there. Okay, but if we look at, again, if we look at the Vaticanus version of the English translation, which is Britain's, I believe, and God said, let us make man according to our image and according to likeness. Again, it drops the our. So don't understand all the technicalities of how Greek works, but and a lot of it's Greek to me. But follow along with me. Don't lose me yet. We're looking at this phrase, let us make man in our image after likeness. God said this. Who's he talking to? Who's he talking to? First, we're just going through the technicalities. If you want to skip past this part in the video, I'm fine with that. You want to jump right all the way to my conclusion, I'm fine with that as well. But for those of you who are really serious Bible students, just hear me out. Bear with me. Now, just for grins, we've looked at the Hebrew, we looked at the Greek. Why not take a peek at one of the ancient Aramaic paraphrastic translations, a paraphrase, from the original Hebrew? We have translations from Hebrew into Greek, but we also in the ancient days had Hebrew translations into paraphrased Aramaic. And the Lord said to the angels who ministered before him, what? Screech! Bring your car to a halt, right? Hit the brakes. And the Lord said to the angels, oh, wait a minute. Everybody who's watching my video is crying foul, saying, Ariel, you're saying that God was conversing with the angels. Are you a Trinitarian Christian or what? Yes, I am. I am a Trinitarian Christian. I'm a Messianic Jew, and I do believe in the Trinity. And I don't believe that God was speaking to the angels. Okay, all right. I conveyed my my opinion right up front. You don't have to listen to the end of the video to know what I believe. I don't believe God's talking with the angels. And then notice when we drop down to verse 27, I think I could probably read the whole verse there. Verse 27 of the Targum says, and the first part is the Palestinian Targum, the Onkelos, and the Lord created man in his likeness. So just before creating man, God supposedly, I'm using air quotes with my fingers for those who can't see, God supposedly converses with the angels. But nothing is surprising there given ancient Israel and modern Israel's non-Trinitarian understanding of God. So no problem. But even more shocking is, did you notice the bracketed Jerusalem fragment reading? I've got it highlighted for you there once again. And the word of the Lord created man in his likeness. In the likeness of the presence of the Lord, he created him, the male and his yoke fellow, he created them. Just let me pause and let that sink in. When we listen to these words, I'm certain, at least it does to me, that it sounds like our first century New Testament Jewish writer John, he wasn't too far off in his logos theology after all, right? Logos theology. Let's go look at John. John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and what? The Word was God. We've got the English here, the ESV, bearing all of that out. The Greek is pretty standard, and it's pretty airtight as to what's going on. In arake, ein halogos, kai halogos, ein pros ton, theon, kai theos, ein halogos. What's going on? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word, this logos, this being who was God and was with God, was literally face-to-face with God. The pros ton theon was very in close proximity, dialoguing with God. This particular word, verse 2, John says, he was in the beginning with God. Hutas ein in arake pros ton theon, says in the Greek right there. All things, verse 3 says, all things were made through him. Speaking of this word, this logos, all things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. Recall that God is making man in his image. Is God speaking with the angels? Are angels made in the image of God? I think not. It's a possibility that he was conversing with them, but it's not a probability. It's a possibility, but not a probability. So, all things were made through him seems to be airtight argument that God must have been conversing with the Logos, the second person of the Godhead, the second person of the Trinity, the Word of the Lord, just like just like the Targum said, and the Word of the Lord created man in his likeness. The Word of the Lord is this second person of God that is conversing with God, and indeed that John confesses that all things were made through him. Right. We're talking about Genesis 1:26. God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. All right, now that we've established what the original text says in regards to Genesis 1:26, we can likewise comfortably accept that nearly every single translation from the original language is fairly accurate. Let us make man in our image after our likeness. So many people get up in arms when they learn that Judaism teaches that God consulted with the angels. As I demonstrated in the previous verse, Rashi goes on to teach that God alone does the creating. So within the overall context of my previous video, the one that you can see on my screen right now, this possibility of God, the exclusive creator, and the angels, his onlooking heavenly hosts, chatting, quote unquote, with one another about the various things that God is making during creation week. Understand what I'm saying there? It shouldn't really fall into the category of heresy, right? At least I don't see it's heretical to have God talk with angels, but then God doing the creation himself. Nothing heretical about that.